Hey, so let's just talk about things you have to consider once you become a beneficiary. So I would be looking at these almost immediately after prevailing on a claim. And I bring this up because I actually have it in a written memo for my clients when we are parting company after a successful case. And it is really just kind of a gratuitous list of things that is not all inclusive because life can have so many different implications in various ways. And there's no way to keep track of them. And that's not my job. But I did want to give some, some tips that may affect many more people than others. So it might be worthwhile just to have the list so people could look at it. Um, Although, again, everyone needs to be due diligent with their own life's courses and what can change or be affected by SSD or vice versa. Okay, or SSI. So anyway, the first thing I have on here, so I'm going to share it to you guys because in case no one else is, and you might find it of value or not. I stuck this in the first part. I have more than one video about social media and the dangers of it. That danger of loose speak and, we all kind of fluff ourselves up on social media doesn't end once you win your case. So as I always say, loose lips sink ships. Social media can be your downfall. You'd be surprised who can see your social media, even if you think you're being kind of private. Oftentimes it's not the case. So yeah, maybe if you're a tech expert, you know how to keep everything super duper. But otherwise, friends of friends and things that are on public that you didn't realize were on public can be seen. So I kind of reiterate here to get off the social media or, to not really be posting, like we've said in other videos, like if you're on there, maybe don't be posting. If you need to communicate with somebody, maybe do it privately through the messenger or one of those things. Because your posts, if they don't make you look disabled, could somehow come and bite you in the butt. You're going to have a CDR. Sometimes there's just surveilling and you don't want to have things up there that can make you look more able than you are. I know it stinks, right? After that little warning, then we go into if you have children or stepchildren, you're going to want to immediately file for the child's benefit based on your work record now that you are a beneficiary. And that would be for minor children, stepchildren a lot of the time, obviously adopted, natural birth, whatever. They don't necessarily have to be living with you. So that's something you definitely want to look into. If you have an adult child who was disabled before 22, or you think he may have been, even though you never had him before the SSA for their rendering of that decision, because you can only do that once you have a parent who is a beneficiary. Now that you are, if you have a child who you believe was disabled under the SSA rules, if they had been applied before he was 22, you're going to want to do this right away. And I will say, as a general matter, I always think people with children who have struggled with disabilities before the age of 22, even though they're not maybe eligible for any benefits at this point, collect all their records that's immediately and hold on to them for decades if you need to. Keep multiple digital copies, whatever you have to do, because there will come a time when that child, adult child, when somebody, a parent retires, passes away, or becomes disabled, now the child can get Social Security disability instead of SSI alone on that parent's work record oftentimes, if they can prove it. And what they need is those medical records from long ago, and they tend to disappear. So hold on to them. Okay, then there is a section on divorced, separated, or single parents. And I'm going to say that the new finding by the Social Security Administration of your disability could affect your child support obligation. Often it's favorable. If your child support obligation was higher back when you were working, and now you're not working and you're only getting Social Security disability, which is far less, you might very well have a basis for which to seek a modification of your child support obligation. Obviously, you're going to do that through whatever entity in your state deals with that. If you had a child support attorney or a divorce attorney, I would go to them. All of these things, basically, if there is a professional that does those things, I would suggest consulting with them rather than winging it on your own if you're not sure exactly what you're doing. Let's see. Oh yeah, not only because your income might be lower, but now that your child, like in the paragraph above, will hopefully be getting a dependent benefit on your work record now that you are collecting, the fact that they are getting that may reduce what you owe them now because they're getting something from you that you worked for. So not only might your child support obligation be less, it might be covered by the fact that they're getting a dependent benefit. And that will be a bonus for you. That's more left in your pocket to survive on. If you have a workers' comp case or had a case anywhere in the past, I'm going to keep it really broad. Anywhere in the past, currently, or you're considering filing for one, or you're waiting on a settlement of one, whether you're in that temporary wage position or now you're just waiting, you are going to want to do what you have to do, because if you prevail, first of all, you always have to report workers' comp to the SSA. They'll figure out all the nuances, by and large. But if you are going to be getting a workers' comp settlement, you're going to have to look at the 80% rule. I'm not going to go into it here, but it could mean that something is offset. And you're going to want to know before you spend all your money, whether it was offset, and you don't want to have an overpayment. So workers' compensation people, stay on top of that. I would say yesterday, don't wait, so that you are prepared for what you may or may not be able to keep out of your workers' comp settlement. Okay. With regard to that workers' comp also, and I'm just going to say this vaguely because, again, I don't do workers' comp and I don't do Medicare law. But with Medicare, if you have a workers' comp claim, Medicare is not going to want to necessarily cover workers' comp related future treatments. So that's something you and your attorney would presumably deal with a Medicare set aside, I think they call it, where there's extra, something happens so that the workers' comp stuff will be covered by the workers' comp settlement and not shoved on the American worker with Medicare and the Medicare funds. So that is something you really need to look at with your workers' compensation attorney if you're heading towards a settlement. If you have long-term disability through it could be a private policy you had, or it was through your employer and you received long-term disability. For the months that overlap with Social Security disability benefits retroactively or going forward, it is a very strong likelihood that the LTD policy you committed to giving the LTD company an offset should you win your SSD. So basically, you may have to, if SSD is paying you $2,000 and LTD was paying you $4,000, LTD is now going to say, all right, we're going to pay you $4,000 minus the $2,000 you get from SSD. Something to know. All right. And they might do it retroactively too. So when you get, and that is a contractual arrangement between you and this insurance company. This is not a Social Security matter in particular. They just have these commercial policies where they put these terms in here. It's for premium savings and all that other stuff. But that way you can decide, is this the bill I'm going to pay first? Or am I going to pay that credit card bill I have? Or, and what will be the downside? Will they just stop paying it to me? In which case they're going to get what they want anyway. You have to decide. It's just another bill potentially. And we all have to decide how we handle certain bills. Right. So I leave that up to you. You can talk to an LTD attorney, which I am not, but that is just something to keep an eye out for. Taxes. People always ask me, am I going to be taxed? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know your personal financial situation. Social Security is income and it is often taxed, not necessarily all of it, but sometimes half of it or more will be taxed. And that will depend on something called your combined income in your, between you and a spouse if you have it. Know that you can do, have the SSA, I think, what is it, a W-4 withholding. You can have some of your Social Security disability benefits withheld, so that if you do have a tax bill at the end because of the other income from your wife or whatever, your spouse, you'll have something having already gone to pay for it. That's an option. Not everyone does it. Also, when you get your SSD back benefits, you get like sometimes a few years of back benefits all paid this year. Do you want to pay the taxes on that bigger amount all in 1 year? I mean, it is received this year, but there are methods permitted under the IRS rules, and you're going to want a tax professional to do this, you know, a tax preparer or a tax accountant, where they can make sure that the part from 3 years ago is only taxed at the rate from 3 years ago, and not, you know, where this big, huge income piece where you would be up in the next tax bracket. So they can prorate it out in terms of figuring out what the total tax will be. And generally that would be to your benefit, presumably. But again, I would be using a professional. Buck up a couple $100 and use a professional. Make sure you get it right. Okay, then we go into Medicare. Most of you who prevail with SSD will become eligible for Medicare unless you recover pretty fast, because generally you have to have 24 months of payments behind you, whether that's a retro lump sum back benefits or, you know, month by month, and you finally get to the 24 months. So that's when you're going to have Medicare and not have to wait till age 65. If you need to speak with somebody about that, I do know people that you can check out that seem to work very well with this and know a lot about giving you your options for whether you're going to do traditional, whether you're going to do, you know, a advantage plan, whether you're going to do a supplement plan with your traditional, and then a prescription plan. So they know the ins and outs, and it can vary depending on where you are in the country with your zip code. It's a little screwy, but they've got a handle on it. So definitely feel free to reach out to me if you want their contact information, and you can do your due diligence and have fun with it. Continuing disability review. Almost everybody is going to have a continuing disability review. So again, kind of similar to the social media warning above, you want to have a practice policy of maintaining your treatment. It may not be as aggressive as when you were getting a grip on your impairments, but you do not really want to drop the ball and stop treating, because when they do a CDR for you and you say, no, I've only seen my primary care in the last 2 years, it could be a problem. You know, you can't recreate the evidence after the moment has passed. So you really want to every year stay on top of it, whether that means getting updated diagnostics every year or two, MRIs, things like that. You know, if you have complaints, you know, you want to communicate them to your doctor, so they're in those records after the fact when the records are ordered on your CDR. If you're saying I'm fit as a fiddle and I'm going to go back to work, in your records, that of course will be in front of the SSA, and they're going to take you at your word probably that you feel really good and think you can go back to work. And that itself might be a really big trigger for a long form, if nothing else. Pardon, I'm losing my voice again. And in this memo here, I have links to videos on each of these things in more detail. I also go into if you're going to be working while disabled, which everybody knows I love that. I love when people can do that and they can enhance their income safely while still complying with the rules as a disabled person to collect SSD or SSI. But it's a reminder to everybody to stay on top of the rules if you're going to do it. If you need to get a legal consultation to make sure the job you think you're going to take will not be bad, maybe you want to buck up and do that. You know, a half hour, an hour consult isn't going to kill you. And you're going to want to make sure that you are staying within the rules so you don't have your SSD canceled. Too many people don't do this. I see it all the time. Not only do they get their SSD canceled, they have a huge overpayment, because by the time it comes out in the wash and the SSD person, it's their time to work on your case. Now another year and a half has gone by that you've been paid inappropriately. And you probably didn't save that money in an interest-bearing account. You probably lived on it along with your work earnings. So get on top of that if you're going to go back to work after you become a beneficiary, or if you are going to change up your work, I'd say. If you're working part-time now and it's completely permissible and you're going to change it in any way, and that means hours, duties, pay scale, all of those can affect your eligibility. If you move with Social Security disability, it is no worries whatsoever. But you do want to report your address to the SSA, of course. If you're on SSI, it's also doable. However, with SSI, your living arrangement, if it changes, can affect your SSI eligibility and or the amount you can get. So when it comes to SSI, you want to take significant note before you make the change, I'd say, of living arrangement changes. You will also want to take note before you get them, any income changes or resources changes. So if someone's going to give you something, you're going to inherit something, a settlement on a case, I would suggest you get your ducks in a row, because if you get that income coming in, chances are you're going to lose your SSI unless it's handled in a certain very specific way. Okay. So income changes and resource changes, that's going to be the two triggers there. Again, could be inheritances, could be significant gifts. It could be working income or regular income that's unearned. Either one is going to have an effect on your SSI. Doesn't mean it's not going to be worth it, even if you're working. But you have to, again, do it carefully, like as if you were on SSD. And of course, if you move and your living arrangements change, SSI will want to know about it, and it could affect. And then, of course, I encourage them to subscribe to the YouTube channel, All Things Social Security, because there'll always be, in this ever-changing Social Security world, there'll always be things cropping up that'll be popped up there. And lastly, of course, I remind them that, God, I'm really losing my voice. I love referrals from my clients. They are the best cases I could ever want. I do like getting them from YouTube too. That's very nice also. But a referral from someone who knows me to someone else, I will always take good care of them. So, and do the best job possible. All right, before I totally lose my voice, have a great day, guys. Those are things that if you have just won, or you're about to win, or you do win in the future, those are some of the things that you're going to want to, consider whether any of them apply to you. It is not exclusive. It doesn't exhaust all possible things, but it's some of the majors. Okay. For anything else, I suggest you go to consultation. They might not be free, but might be worth it. All right. You guys have a great day. I will talk to you later. Bye.